All right, welcome back. You're watching Market Fatafat right here on ET Now. There's an update coming in from IndiGo. The CEO has told employees that we want to assure that the management is fully charged by the board to implement it. We're sure that you are aware of press reports on alleged disagreements between our promoters. So essentially confirming the ET Now news break that my colleague Nandara told you yesterday, that the two promoters may be sparring at this point of time. But the CEO is essentially, that's Ronojoy Dutta, ensuring the employees that the strategy, the long-term strategy, does remain firmly in place, and the management will continue to implement it. So just, falling short of exactly putting it in words, Nayantara, that yes, there seems to be a bit of a tiff between the promoters. But yes, this is a clarification being put forward by the CEO to the employees, which certainly does cause your story to hold significant water, Nayantara.
You're seeing IndiGo under selling pressure today, and I think the stock is coming under more pressure after this letter that the CEO Ronojoy Dutta has written to the employees. What's important to note is what's not written, and that is Ronojoy Dutta, the CEO, has not denied that there is any tiff or any spat that exists between the two promoters. He writes, "I'm sure you're well aware of the press reports regarding alleged disagreements between our two promoters, Mr. Rahul Bhatia and Mr. Rakesh Gangwal. I want to assure you that the growth strategy of the airline remains unchanged and firmly in place, and the management is fully charged by the board to implement it. We will continue our focus on creating value for our shareholders, our customers, our employees, and the communities we serve. Thank you for your dedication to our values and safety and courteous, hassle-free services to our customers." Signs off after that. So what's important to note is he acknowledges the media reports, acknowledges there is public discourse on the spat between the promoters, but doesn't say that it does not exist. Goes on to inspect assuage any fears that might exist between the employees, that what's going to happen next if the two promoters, the two founders, are not seeing eye to eye. Remember, IndiGo has massive plans for overseas. That's one of the big reasons Ronojoy Dutta was hired in the first place. It's also one of the big reasons, allegedly, for that spat between Rahul Bhatia as well as Rakesh Gangwal. This CEO has worked very closely with Rakesh Gangwal. They both were colleagues at United Airlines. He has been given the charge, to oversee the overseas operations of IndiGo. IndiGo is coming out with a business class service as well. It has plans to really fly with its wings overseas, and Ronojoy Dutta is in charge of that. And that is, like I said, at one of the reasons, the spat that allegedly exists between the two promoters who are not seeing eye to eye for charting out IndiGo's next story. But for now, you can see the stock trading at the low point of the day. It's a confirmation of sorts that while the CEO writes to employees to assuage fears, he never denies that there is any spat. He does not deny that spat does not exist, but in fact talks about how the board's direction will be implemented, and that itself is part of the spat. Rahul Bhatia believing he's losing executive control in the decision making that is taking place at IndiGo.
That is the update coming in. Then IndiGo CEO is writing to the staff. The only thing he has not mentioned is, of course, denying that promoter spat, which essentially one could say safe to assume that there is trouble brewing at this point of time between the promoters. And remember, we at ET Now told you first about that story yesterday, and you are seeing the stock price as well duly react. Like another flagged off, Rahul Bhatia as well as Rakesh Gangwal do seem to be at this point of time at loggerheads with respect to management strategy, like Nantara I told you earlier. And now, of course, the CEO himself has written a letter to employees saying, referring rather to the press reports regarding the alleged disagreements between the two promoters. But he does assure the employees that the growth strategy of the airline remains unchanged. And it's very interesting to see that he has not denied the story. So that's, of course, the latest coming in. Ananda, if you could just reiterate for our viewers, what exactly is it that is the subject of diff between the two promoters, Rahul Bhatia as well as Rakesh Gangwal? And I know that both of them hold roughly the same stake in the company. So what exactly is the subject of this diff?
Executive control. Yeah, I'd like to flag off that, InterGlobe that owns IndiGo is now trading at the low point of the day. It's trading with a cut of almost 8.5% after the CEO, Ronojoy Dutta, has written to all of the employees. Sometimes you have to pay more attention to what's not written, and that is conspicuous by its absence. So while acknowledging that there are media reports on the promoter spat, he doesn't deny it, but tries to assuage fears. And his big message is that whatever it is that the board has decided for the future strategy is indeed going to be implemented. And that we understand from our sources is what is at the heart of the spat between Rahul Bhatia and his business partner Rakesh Gangwal. Both these gentlemen founded InterGlobe in 2004 with a 350 crore rupee investment. They have about a similar stake in the company, 37 to 38%. The spat seems to be about one promoter feeling and being under the perception that the other business partner, the other promoter group, is gaining executive control by bringing in senior management, by having a special by choosing the people that he wants to see lead IndiGo. So maybe it's to do with executive control is at the heart of it. In fact, Aditya Ghosh, who was seen as one of the key architects of IndiGo's success, left after 10 years. He was known to be close to Rahul Bhatia, and that was the first time that, there were murmurs, what's going on at IndiGo. A media reticent Rahul Bhatia last year had to come out and say, no, Aditya Ghosh has decided to move on. It has nothing to do with recent appointments. It has nothing to do with the influx of expats. Expats that, aviation veterans, those that track the sector very closely, say were handpicked by Rakesh Gangwal. Rakesh Gangwal is seen as a brainchild behind IndiGo. Jitendra Bhargava now joining us on the phone line on this big story on your screens. Mr. Bhargav, we had you 24 hours ago on ET Now on our mega exclusive about the spat, the rift between Rahul Bhatia and Rakesh Gangwal, the two gentlemen that founded IndiGo. Now, the CEO, Ronojoy Dutta, writing to employees, saying, I'm sure you've read about the media reports about the spat, but I want to assure you that the board's decisions will be implemented. He doesn't deny the spat. Sometimes what is not written is more important than what is. But here, the clear message going out, the board strategy is indeed going to be implemented. In a sense, read between the lines, he does confirm that there is perhaps trouble in the air.
Yes, very much. This is the conclusion one will draw, because having issued a letter, which is a welcome step, he does confirm that there is a rift and it could have implications. But in management parlance, I would say it's a very good initiative to reassure employees. It is not a question of just employees in the kind of aviation environment we currently are passing through in India. It basically sets at rest any speculation, whether in the share market, employees, the various people associated with the airline, etc. So I think it's a very good initiative to query it in the beginning itself, though it's an admission that there is a rift. Now, what happens? I do not think if this is going to be a sustained communication to employees, etc., as we go along, perhaps many more things would come out. Because one positive that I see is the kind of speculation. Each one will be speculating as to the cause of the rift between the two promoters. Now, if they can spell it out something and say, okay, while there is a clear message here that board resolution will be carried on because it's a board-driven company. But the reality is we know in reality that there are decisions, but unless there is total harmony between these
Bhargav, if I could interrupt you there,
it will impact.
Mr. Bhargav, if I could interrupt you. Mr. Bhargav, if I could interrupt you at that juncture and actually read out the point you're raising. I want to read that for the viewers who are tuning in now, as well as for you, so we can get more insights from you. Ronojoy Dutta, after saying, I'm sure you're well aware of the press reports regarding alleged disagreements, he goes on to say, I want to assure you that the growth strategy of the airline remains unchanged and firmly in place, and the management is fully charged by the board to implement it. We will continue our focus on creating value for our shareholders, our customers, our employees, and the communities we serve. So he acknowledges the fact that there is a public discourse on the media, on the spat between the promoters, doesn't deny it, but then talks about the management having the charge by the board to implement the various strategies that have already been decided. Mr. Bhargav, isn't that the root cause of the alleged spat between the promoters? One promoter camp That is Rahul Bhatia feeling that the other promoter, Rakesh Gangwal, is getting executive control. He's made all of the senior level appointments, is having a bigger say, especially for IndiGo 2.0, which is the overseas trajectory.
You see, a couple of points here. Yes, the fact is there are reasons for which of course the rift between the two promoters. But this is mere, I think, in the field of speculation at the moment till we hear something concrete. Yes, appointments could be one because, as we said yesterday, starting with Aditya Ghosh's resignation, subsequent appointments of several people, many of them expats, and to put greater emphasis on international operations, which in my opinion is the need, because IndiGo, after having emerged as India's largest carrier in domestic market, still does not fly to Europe and United States, etc. So you really can't have global ambitions unless you cover Europe and USA from India. So that's one part. The second is the letter that has been issued out is on very expected lines. What else can a person say to quell the unrest that may have risen because of the media reports, is to assure them. So he's done exactly the same thing, but we really can't be giving too much credence to it because, as I said, it is on expected lines, and this is what any management would like to put it across to the employees when such a thing comes out in public, which came out as quite a surprise, I must say.
Okay, so the markets are clearly not expecting IndiGo to be going through any form of a rough patch. Mr. Bhargav, the stock has taken a beating in trade today. I'm going to make this my final question to you. There's a lot that's happening in aviation. Clearly, the market is panicking. We are seeing the stock under pressure. What would your advice be? The promoters have had a tip, but these are two very sound businessmen who have come together, and their personalities are literally like chalk and cheese, who came together to set up India's most successful airline at a time when you've seen Jet crash land, a lot of other airlines going through rough patch. Go Air has had its problems. We all know about Air India's problems. What would your advice be to all of those that are watching this story? Would you think that the two promoters will be able to sort it out? Having said that, I know I'm asking you to speculate on that front, but what would the larger message be for the aviation industry and for all the consumers?
First thing is we must look at it. It's no point giving undue or excessive credit to Rahul Bhatia or Rakesh Gangwal. They simply were with the right business model of a low-cost airline, because India is a price-sensitive market, so they got the act right, whereas Naresh Goyal of Jet Airways, Air India for that matter, of Vistara haven't got it right. That's one part. It's purely market dynamics that has helped them make IndiGo as a highly successful and a profitable airline. Now, this rift can have severe consequences. You must have total harmony between the two major promoters to take a decision. If somebody says, look, this is my ambition or vision for IndiGo for the 5 years or 10 years from now, and the other partner is content with restricting IndiGo in domestic operations, allowing it to go further from 43% currently to 50% and deriving satisfaction out of it, I think we must wait for real reasons to come out. But there is no denying the fact that there is going to be a need for a harmony between the two promoters if IndiGo is to keep marching ahead and, unlike our other carriers, not to pay the consequences, not being able to expand in the way. Look at the large number of orders that have been placed by IndiGo. They have a model which is going to be expanding. Ambitions are very high. So I would only hope that both of the promoters realize this fact that IndiGo's future lies with total harmony between the two, and should they drift apart, it's going to have very serious consequences for IndiGo. Fortunately for them, there is nobody in the Indian market currently which can challenge or take advantage of the differences and the consequences that IndiGo may suffer in the near future.